See whether it's working. Okay. Yeah.
All good.
Namato Ratana Tayasa. May I pay homage to Triple Gem, the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. My respect goes to my parents and my teachers. Hello, good evening, everyone. So today is Tuesday, the 17th of November, 2020, and this is Achan Sujan from Varapunya Meditation Center, Aberdeen, Scotland. So as usual, I'm here with you tonight. And particularly tonight, I am not just alone. I have invited Tharn or Thitadhammo to share his insights and his understanding. So before we going into that detail, so I will invite him to introduce himself and how long he's been a monk and what else he's been doing and what are his experiences. So, okay.
Hello, everyone. Some of you may be familiar with me because I appeared in a couple of talks before.
Louder, please.
Hello, everyone. I think some of you may have been familiar with me before, but I am Ajahn Thitadhammo. I was a monk. I ordained now for about 3 months. Oh no, 4 months. Yeah, 4 months nearly now. Yeah, it's yeah, I'm enjoying the recluse. No, not recluse. It's not very recluse. A secluded life of a monk. It's pretty quiet, very easygoing life. Not too many worries. Just work. Um, doesn't mean that there is no work. There is a lot of work, physical work and mental work, but meditation allows for a sort of recharging the batteries a lot. So at this center, we've been studying and practicing. Yeah.
So again, just a quick reminder that earlier on our on live Facebook was set it up as only for me, and I've just released it into a private, so you can later you can listen what been said. Yeah? So yes, as Tharn or Thitadhammo said, that he has been a monk for 4 months. Almost
like
said 4 years.
Yeah. Doesn't feel like.
And again, due to this coronavirus, and almost all the time we are at the center, and Tharn also at the center, and studying teachings. In the past, were studying Tipitaka, Samyukta Nikaya, and later we come back to the basics of the teachings. So like that. So this is just a general introduction. Yeah? So in the meantime, we've been talking about different teachings, and then also Carl has been reading Mahanidana Sutta, which is one of the very deep and very long discourse, and one of the discourses comes under in the Digha Nikaya, which means the long verses, which is the first book of the Sutta Pitaka, and within that Sutta Pitaka, that is there are 34 suttas, and within that, I think about 15, number 15.
Yeah, 15, D and 15.
So would you like to say something about that discourse?
Okay, like John Sujan mentioned, it is a very deep sutta. So before I start, I would like to make the usual disclaimer that um, I have not fully realized these teachings, therefore I am liable to make mistakes. And likewise, when it comes to topics of deep complexity and subtlety in the Dhamma, there is a certain poverty in language, in speech, in linguistics, because these topics cannot really fully be explained um, with language alone. It requires experiential understanding through our practice, which is, like the importance of practice in a way is just what I'm understanding when I study is a lot of these topics. When I try to understand them purely through the reading, through studying, I'm using in many ways logical reasoning, and humans are not logical creatures and we are not living in a logical universe. So it's quite a poor way of understanding the Dhamma, but it is essential in our path. And therefore, I would like to tell you that what I say may not be the full,
Picture.
the full picture, the
Cool.
complete picture of what must be known
Mm.
in Paticca Samuppada in the topic in the Mahanidana. This is just the poverty of linguistics compared to. I think language has been called a poor imitation of nature, and this is very evident when we study the Dhamma. So with that, I will start with the Mahanidana Sutta. It's I think it's the longest discourse on the Paticca Samuppada by the Buddha. But as Ajahn Sujan mentioned to me earlier today and yesterday as well, it's actually missing out two of the links, three of the links.
Three of them.
Yeah, it's missing out the avidya and sankara, so ignorance and mental preparations or mental conditions, right? And however, it is a very important and very deep sutta, and likewise, it's missing the six sense spheres, six senses. However, it does mention and go into quite a lot of detail on contact, and mentions eye contact, nose contact, body contact, and so on and so forth, and mind contact as well. So it does not totally omit the six internal sense spheres. However, what I find really, really fascinating about this sutta is its elucidation on the relationship, on the interrelationship between nama rupa or name and form and vijnana or consciousness. So this has been, I think, it has been described in the Samyutta Nikaya as a sort of a vortex. It is a vortex between the nama rupa and vijnana that keeps us in samsara. It's uh, it's through consciousness that we understand nama rupa, and it's through nama rupa that consciousness is conditioned, and likewise nama rupa is conditioned by consciousness. And the Buddha is trying to explain this to Venerable Ananda, who goes to him and tells him that he understands the paticca samuppada, and then the Buddha says, no, 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 don't say that, Ananda. It is because people don't fully understand the paticca samuppada that people are stuck in this samsaric cycle, that all these horrors and terrors that we see in the world stem from this. But anyway, also actually the Mahanidana Sutta goes into the interrelationship between nama and rupa. So the nama being the mental factor and rupa being the physical or form factor. However, I think what the gist I got from this sutta is that contact, or is how we understand this world, and contact has two qualities in it. One is the sort of the recognition aspect of contact, and the other is the impact of the contact, or as in the resistance. And these two are understood through nama and rupa. So nam, without it's been described as adivachana sampassa and pathiga sampassa. So Buddha talks about without the name, without the nama aspect, without the mind aspect, without the recognition aspect, there will be no verbal impression of a contact on the body factor. And likewise, without the body factor, uh, there will be no impingement or resistance on the nama factor. Um, I think what it's trying to say is what the nama factor, what the mind factor does is say what that is, what that contact is. Am I right in saying that? So let's say a very simple example would be you looking at the screen right now. These light rays are entering through your eyes, and the mind factor recognizes it as a picture, and your ears hear the sound waves and recognizing it as a voice, as the voice of the person that you see, and so on and so forth. Um, and likewise, the body factor conditions the mind factor through the contact of the light rays and the sound waves and so on. Is that correct? I hope so. Anyway, um, so this is the importance of the nama and rupa. They are the mediators of contact with the external world and the internal and your mind as well. This is what I mean, how hard it is to describe if you haven't properly experienced this, because I haven't. um, and then the Buddha goes on to describe the importance of the condition, how nama rupa conditions consciousness, whereby if without consciousness there will be no nama rupa. Like, he uses that example of a fetus in a mother's womb. Says, if vijnana leaves the fetus, would there be name and form? And our Venerable Ananda answers no. um, this for me is quite obvious, because it would cause a miscarriage. Buddha uses the word miscarriage here, because it would just be a ball of flesh. And likewise, in ourselves, if vijnana leaves our nama rupa, then we would not be a living being. It would be a dead body. Um, and likewise, nama rupa conditions consciousness. And this this is, I think, the main teaching in this sutta.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a Mahanidana Sutta that Tharn Karl is trying to explain.
Quite poorly.
Yeah, this is actually a very difficult subject,
Mm.
and very long subject as well.
Something that I'm wrestling with in my mind. So it's not something I can elucidate clearly enough for someone else to understand what is going through my mind.
What is important in this Mahanidana Sutta is that it starts from how our life begins, and how we suffer. And that is why it starts off from the vijnana, the consciousness, as the main source of our life. And meanwhile, Buddha was simply saying that while, as the Karl said, while the fetus is in the mother's womb and the vijnana leaves the body, then what happens? So basically, that means there won't be any beings survive. Meanwhile, suppose few months already a baby is in the mother's womb, still alive, and somehow the vijnana simply leaves, then also that means dead too. Yeah. And this is how the Buddha was talking in that in Mahanidana Sutta to the Venerable Ananda. And in here, that's what I call Pathamang Kalalang Hoti Kalala Hoti Abuddha. Yeah? The very moment when someone born, that moment of this fetus or the main dot, which is just entered into the mother's womb, it has to have a vijnana entered as well. Not only that mother is capable by what's called mensuration and having in, intercourse with the capable man, and with that contact between a man and a woman in a sexual connection at that time, if there is a consciousness who is ready to be born in that moment, and then the new fetus will developed in the mother's womb. And this this is the beginning of the Mahanidana Sutta, the whole concept of how we become and how we be suffered, and how can we be fully understood that. Yeah, do you want to add something on?
It's a little bit of a digression, but like this also shows how Buddhism is not a materialistic philosophy, because scientific materialism will try to explain consciousness as arising from matter, as in it is the arrangement of neurons and in our brain that is somehow producing consciousness. And so I think it's called the hard problem of consciousness is that how can you explain these how can you explain physical arrangement and physical matter from which we are having these phenomenal qualia or these very subtle things that and it's a problem in philosophy and it's a problem in science as well now. It's just the fact that how can you compute consciousness, and there is several new hypotheses coming on. It is to do with quantum biology and quantum biology and like a simulation theory, and there is a lot of theories, but here we Buddha is and Buddhism is saying that consciousness does not arise from matter alone. It is independent of matter. It is not actually independent because you need name and form. It's a lot more complicated than that. It's just well, I'll figure it out one day, I hope. But it is very fascinating for me, the idea of consciousness, because this is something that I thought about studying earlier when I was in uni, and I was doing a course in philosophy, and it came across the hard problem of consciousness and the soft problem of consciousness. One of it was called the philosophical zombie. Have you heard of this?
No, I haven't.
So the philosophical zombie is a thought experiment in philosophy, whereby if you make a human being with exactly the same cells and elements and arrangement that a human body has, so you basically like carbon 3D print a human being exactly the same as me, every neuron, not nothing, just the complete copy, no difference. Would that thing have a consciousness? Uh, but like that's like would it be have the same consciousness as me? That is the question, and that's why it's called a philosophical zombie. It's like but the people say that's the hard problem. It's like no way that person will have a consciousness, and I would agree with that because I think the idea of consciousness goes beyond matter. It is there are so many you call them anomalies that make no sense if you think of consciousness as arising from matter. Like there are children who learn languages, like 5 languages. There are some people who get brain damage and they learn French. They've never ever studied French ever in their life. They've never heard or been to France, but they got brain damage and now they speak French. It's I don't know. Like I've biggest reason I became a nun, became a monk, became a monk was because I let go of my scientific materialistic outlook on the universe. I accepted the fact that samsara is a possibility, not just a possibility, but it is a certainty, and that matter mind cannot arise from matter alone, that consciousness cannot arise from matter alone. And I started thinking of samsara as this sort of information stream, or is based on the information theory of the universe, that the universe is just information manifesting itself as physical matter. But I started thinking of samsara as this sort of this stream of information that flows on and um, manifests itself in different physical forms from time to time, but it's never ending until nibbana. But anyway, that's something totally that's bit of a very big digression, but yeah, that is.
Well, you can tell us about your background in education.
Ah, okay.
So then we will be able to understand why you're talking all this material.
I I was studying science. I was studying biology, but I've dropped out of uni before. I passed before I became a monk. I graduated with a first class honors, but I I dropped out of uni the first time I went, and there were several factors involved in that. Most of them were my fault, but uh, one thing that I feeling I had was that I was dissatisfied with what I was learning, because I was learning genetics at the time. And the whole reason I wanted to study biology was, on one hand, to get a job and support myself and my family, but on the other hand is because I was so fascinated by life, just the process of life. Because when you look at our bodies and the life of a body of an animal, it's made of the exact same stuff as uh, just anything, as a rock. If you put carbon, nitrogen, and so on and so forth, it just, if you put a pile of carbon, nitrogen, and all these elements, it doesn't have a life. But anyway, I was so fascinated by the idea of life, and what I was learning in uni and what I was doing on studying by myself, it just wasn't satisfying for me. The that genetics or biology can answer the question of life. And so I started looking at philosophy, and I tried to study uh, several different philosophies, from Taoism and Zen Buddhism and a little bit of Theravada Buddhism as well, but and also a lot of Western philosophies. But I was left with such a dissatisfaction, and I just couldn't be bothered to learn anything in genetics because it was just so boring for me. It was just a bunch of lists, and yeah, it's not the same sort of interest that I have when I'm learning the Dhamma or meditating. And then I went later, after, as I got older, reality started hitting me that I can't just do this. I wasn't satisfied working as a chef or all these other jobs that I did, because they gave me money and supported me, and I could go on nice holidays and everything. But it was very, very dissatisfying life, because it's just a grind, and I didn't mind the hard work, and in fact, I love hard work, but I realized I'm not working for anything. I'm just working just to, and I thought a human being is more than just an animal that's trying to survive. There is something deeper about being a human being, and just pure dissatisfaction. And I went to uni because I love animals. So I thought, okay, I'll study zoology, and I ended up finishing it purely just because I was mature at this point, and I just stuck with it. But then I came here, started meditating and learning the Dhamma, and there I found the idea that, okay, I think through this I can finally satisfy my curiosity.
And now, those who are working or those who are in, let's say, your previous environment, what would you advise them
Uh,
or suggestions?
if you're happy with what you're doing, that's great. Uh, but my suggestion is that we need to work to survive, but we don't. We need to work to live, but not live to work.
Mm.
So whatever spare time you have, spend it on trying to better yourself, trying to understand the Dhamma, to understand the nature of reality and what life really is and
Mm.
what this universe really is, because
Mm.
that's what we are here for, because
Mm.
that's why we have this amazing mind
Mm.
that no other creature possesses, that
Mm.
because that's why we have this power that the Buddha described that only humans have, which is the power to do good, to avoid evil, and to purify our mind. There
Mm.
is no other being in this universe that can do what we do. There is no other being in this universe that can become an enlightened Buddha.
Mm.
So this is the
Okay.
power in you. You have the power of the Buddha in you. So do not let go of that for material possessions or for name and fame,
Mm.
because nothing is worth it compared to realizing the truth.
Okay. So unfortunately, we have to end here because the time is just ticking for our evening chanting. And once again, it's wonderful to have Than Khao
Oh,
and
thanks for having
coming.
me.
And so in the future, then I don't have to worry. I can go and he can take a
No.
So thank you
Please
everyone
don't.
for listening, and thank you particularly Than Khao for sharing his experiences and discussion on the Dhamma and his understanding. And I hope that everyone enjoyed. And I will, in the future, will come back again with some other topics and other stories. But due to the time limit that we have to stop here now. So in a few moments' time, we're going to have evening chanting and guided meditation. You're most welcome to join with us. And it was just a one reminder that tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning, David is going to run the support group mindfulness session on Facebook. You are welcome. You are invited to join that session too. So with this, thank you, and may you all be well and happy. May the Buddha Dhamma Sangha bless you. And in a few moments' time, we'll see you for the chanting and guided meditation. Until then, sadhu and good night.